Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti. As we often do, and we always do, we dive deep into a subject matter and try to understand the impact and implications of things that are happening around us. And today I wanted to specifically talk about one very important aspect. There is not much of conversation that you hear or read about the violence that is happening in Bengal post-election. But there are many stories emerging out of there. The people are leaving the villages, murders and rapes are happening in a rampant way. And sometimes people have also alluded to with a fear and trepidation that is Kashmir repeating itself in Bengal. And that ought to be a matter of serious concern. Are Hindus safe in their own country? Are we going to become refugees in our own homeland, just as Kashmiri Pandits went through the drill? What exactly is going on? And plus, there are several issues. We know now that for 1 month or so, India was hit hard with the second wave of coronavirus. Now that wave has ebbed. The figures are coming down, deaths are coming down. But still, in a very interesting way, India deaths are still less by 300,000 than the US. But the curious thing was that both the strongest economy in the world, United States, with a superlative medical infrastructure in place, were hit hard in the first wave. And India, that doesn't have a sophisticated healthcare structure, has many more people, a lot more indiscipline in not maintaining the COVID discipline. The second wave hit hard and the country suffered a lot. But both the countries are classic examples. The two largest economies in the world, in a sense, they were hit hardest. And both the political leaders of their era, they were the massive political opponents of China. It's a geopolitical element, but nobody talks about it. I have dared to mention that these two leaders, Modi ji and President Trump, they took on China head on. Is it a curious factor that these two countries were hit hardest by coronavirus? And many more issues. I have great pleasure in welcoming three panelists from here, from three different parts of the United States. Mr. Raj Patel, he is in Chicago. He's a Sanatani, he's a very proud Sanatani activist, and he's in film industry. He has just completed a film, and I will request him to tell us more about it when I request him to speak on the subject matter. The second gentleman is Sanjeev Irkal. Sanjeev Irkal is a civil engineer, a small business owner from Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome, Sanjeev. And the third is a young man, but he's as bald as I am, but relatively very young, Chaitanya G. Rendu. He's in Florida. He's a startup and business coach, especially in healthcare modeling and simulation with a focus on simulation. So welcome to all three of you. I want to hit off with that subject matter. We are all, four of us, I'm in New York, you are in Chicago, you are in Florida, and you are in Atlanta, Georgia. We are all Indians here. We are under the banner of non-resident Indians. It's only under this banner that all Indians are Indians. Otherwise, we are Bengalis, Tamilians, Andhrites, or whatever else, Kannadigas, as the case may be. But under the banner of NRI, we are all Indians. Tell us about your thought, Raji. What is happening in West Bengal and how does it affect us? Why must it matter to us?
Yeah, a lot of things are happening in West Bengal, and I have been in touch with people on ground as part of helping victims. People have been beaten, people have been robbed, the businesses have been robbed, people have been killed, girls have been snatched from their houses, they have been raped, they have been gang raped. There were a couple of cases where Girls were picked up at nighttime, and they will be raped all night, and they will be sent home in the morning. Houses have been bombed. Houses have been demolished with JCBs. Houses have been set to fire. You can imagine whatever worst thing that can happen in a riots, whatever the things that the thugs, the gangs can do has happened. Whatever supposed to, or whatever we think, or whatever we have seen that happened in Kashmir has happened in West Bengal. It's terrible.
Is happening. It's a very disturbing news, particularly, there's a lady who is the chief minister of the state. Who is doing it? Are the TMC people? Who is it? TMC people? Are they immigrants? Is it the Rohingyas? Who is doing it? I was disturbed by one element. The news that came around was the fact that there were several Rohingyas who produced bogus certificates of residency and won the election. So the question then arises is, what kind of election did we have? Sanjeevji, your thought on that?
Well, to begin with, violence is not new to Bengal. Bengal has always experienced violence, but this violence, I feel, is a little different. It has this ethnic cleansing mode to it. And I hold Mamata Banerjee personally responsible because it has completely happened under her, as a chief minister of the state. It's her responsibility to maintain peace, law and order. Now, what I see happening in Bengal is, she's just doing what she said she would do after the elections. She said, people who vote for BJP, said after the CRPF people leave, I will take care of you. And it's in the speech. I mean, I'm sure we have all heard those speeches. And she's just doing what she said she was going to do. And you can look at the carnage, and you can look at what's happening on the ground today. Like Raji was just talking about, there is, several people maimed, murdered, women have been abused, raped, and honestly, I don't know, we don't have the exact count yet, but I'm sure it will start trickling in. The numbers that we are all seeing right now, they're all over the place. But, but I do know for a fact that a lot of people have fled to Assam. A lot of people, are seeking, some sort of a rehabilitation money, because they don't have anything. And I know from our own group in US, people have been sponsoring families, sending them some money so they can restart rebuilding their life. So the security of people in West Bengal, as it stands today, is being completely demolished. The confidence of most people that I talk to and I interact with, and people are appalled to see what's going on in today's day and age with social media, with information that is being circulated so quickly amongst everybody. But this, what we are seeing here is nothing but just blatant disregard for law and order and for human life. And this has to be checked, and this has to be punished. And my other thing I've noticed is the complete and deafening silence from the center, and I have very high regard for Modi ji and Amit Shah ji. I consider them to be very, very good administrators. But I'm trying to figure out why this silence.
And that's a very good point. Even, like people like, I have supported Mr. Modi, I still do. And I will continue to support him. But the element of silence that they have maintained on this is mind-boggling. You can understand the silence until a time. You can say that post-election, you were assessing, or you were tired, you were exhausted. And I said this in this program when people were saying that he had not said anything about it 3 weeks ago. I said that, hey, don't assume that he is not hurting. He is hurting for what is happening to his BJP workers in that state post-election. It must be hurting him, but he also must be contemplating what to do. Because, your famous Rajnath Singh's Kadi Ninda, remember that? You don't want to fall into that trap.
Right.
Merely condemning the heinous crime and the butchering that is going on is not enough. Do you dismiss the state government? Do you send the police? Do you send the army? Do you send back CRPF? And one of the challenges which India faces all the time is that we have lots of enemies within. Politics is a strange game. As it is, entire India is right now under attack by every leftist media, international media. Our people, Barkha Dutt and others, write articles against Modi and they become anti-India, as if Modi is the ultimate evil.
True.
Right?
True.
So we have our own people. So if Modi sends CRPF, they will say, here comes the military, democratic aspiration. So Chiranjeev Chaitanya ji, I wanted to ask you something very simple. Why is media silent on this? I mean, Sanjeev ji raised a very valid point. What we are getting to know is from technology media. I call that technology media. Tectonic shift brought about by technology that is enabling us to know things on almost instantaneously. You can check out things from whether it's a map or friend or, the news comes. So even if mainstream media doesn't cover, I don't give a damn about it anymore. But what I'm saying to you now is, what must happen that how can we hold this mainstream media accountable for staying silent? Because there are some Bengali people, I know them very well, they are rising totally against any attack that you and I will make that this is happening in Bengal. They are saying this is all centers cooked up thing. There are few violences happening, not too many, but they are making a story out of nothing, making a mountain of the molehill just to dismiss Mamata Banerjee. How do you react to that?
Dr. Jha, that's a great point. Why is our mainstream media silent about Bengal? If we could for a second expand that, why is the mainstream media silent on so many topics related to national security, related to progress, related to anarchy in various parts of the country, and related to the India story? I think we have a systemic problem with mainstream media. I can't quite put my finger on it. You certainly, I think, hit part of that answer. Is this virulent anti-Modi has manifested into an anti-India, and somewhere it's disconnected from electoral logic. I mean, I for one, am a big believer in the democratic system. I think the opposition has a place in our country, as I'm sure all of us would agree. We do need checks and balances. We do have the three centers of power. We want them to be competing and not collaborating. So the mess of a democracy is good for a vibrant, diverse country like us. Having said that, though, I think the question you're asking is, what are systemic issues that are resulting in this, if I might say, a conspiracy of silence? And then, as you point out, social media is able to pierce through this veil of silence and information is trickling out. Now, is that very healthy? Because those social media pictures and social media posts, while they are informative, are they intended to incite? And so when I, and all of us, I think, are privy to similar kind of posts coming through WhatsApp and others, and they're very emotional, and one has to ask themselves that, so there are some facts and there is a narrative being built, but somewhere in that spectrum lies the truth. And with mainstream media being silent, I think the truth is the victim. So I do not know why the mainstream media is silent, but I would suggest for us to explore some systemic issues in the way our democracy has been set up that is leading to this. It's easy to say these three people in mainstream media are bad people, but what is motivating them? What is their incentive to behave a certain way? And what does that mean for India's future? I think these things require further discussion and investigation on all of our parts.
Yeah, I mean, we know that. We saw how the mainstream media plays the game. I mean, if you watch today's stories, I mean, the stories of not today, I mean to say in the last few weeks, you realize that Trump was virtually guillotined. The entire attack on him was so motivated. It was virtually an orchestra, coordinated attack. They talked about Russian collusion, but now we realize the collusion was somewhere else. But today we are not talking about that, but that's just an example of sorts. So vested interest in politics comes in. So yeah, Sanjeevji.
If I may add to what Chaitanyaji was saying, I think I'm a firm believer in follow the money. Because, besides the media being so ideologically divided, not just in India, globally, I see a trend. I can draw a lot of parallels between what's happening in the United States and what's happening in India also, because you have this Marxist, leftist, all these ragtag coalition of people that just want to unseat the existing strong government. And I see a lot of trend in that direction. But again, coming back to the social media point, I believe, you can only run the fake narratives for so long. The media has already discredited itself. Nobody watches NDTV anymore. I certainly don't turn on CNN for news. I used to be a CNN avid watcher. I don't believe what's coming out of their mouth sometimes, because I do my own research. And when I speak for myself, and I know for a fact, a lot of my friends do the same thing. So there's a seismic shift happening in the business model of media also, with the advent of social media coming in, basically.
Right. Absolutely correct, because 10 or 12 years ago, when I was consulting with an investment bank in Bahrain, I wrote an article saying that technology will force more transparency and some amount of integrity on corruption and corrupt practices by anybody, because you can't hide anymore. So whoever you are, whatever you are, you get exposed sometime sooner or later. And once your credibility is gone, then you have no longer any face. You can't tell that I'm reporting honestly. And then you begin to say truthfully speaking, then that means you were lying all the while. So I'm coming to you, Raji, with a very different thing altogether here. And I wanted to...
Can I take up on this issue? I have a comment.
Oh, sure. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
So I think since 1980s, there's an evolution of people structurally, where long before people were kind of in the center, right? By far and large, some are left, some are right. Over a period of time, and very recent time, people have split apart. They're bipolar. Either you are this, either you are left or far left, or right or far right. In the middle, there's no one left, really. This is because since 2001, there is a major shift. There's too much funding that's happening. For example, in Western countries, let's speak of US. There's so much funding that comes from the oil money that goes into the education system, that goes into the media, which is funding all these things, which is making them take a stand on far left side. And when general people see media and education system changing, and when they see the media taking far left stand, they shift to right and further right. And so there's this bipolar shift in people. There's nobody left in the middle. It's all
You are
from,
right. There is definite rise of extremism, and I
yes,
remember this very clearly because I was part of a think tank in which we used to study the trends, and the trend was very simple: that people were becoming more extreme, people were pandering and appeasing for vote bank politics. Politicians in this country have become very polarized now. Political leadership is responsible for the bipolar way people look at things. There is no longer anything non-partisan.
right.
As a result of which, what has happened is that politicians are the cause of major disturbance in the US social life and political life. So you have, you have to be X, then only you are right, or everybody else is wrong. We'll come to that later because political leadership is critical. You have said you are a Sanatani. Now, majority of us Indians are Sanatani. Hindus are Sanatanis. We were called Hindus and we were called India, but that's not our original name. So as a Sanatani, what is your prescription? We consider Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Atithi Devo Bhava, but people are there to slit our throat.
Yeah.
How do we protect and defend ourselves? And my favorite statement is that whether we are vegan, vegetarian, or absolute believer in non-violence, as I say in Hindi, ahimsa ke param pujari. So even if you are ahimsa ke param pujari, vegan or vegetarian, if our family is attacked, and God forbid, we will have to rise in defense.
I would say,
families.
yeah.
What part of Sanatan Dharma weakens us? And to protect and defend our families, we have to be in a state of readiness. Because if we are not in a state of readiness, then we will have to run, escape. And Hindus have become escapist. So 10 people, 10 goons come and wield a sword, and 1,000 people leave the village. That's happened in Kairana, in Uttar Pradesh. Village vacated because people were violent. 500,000 Kashmiri Pandits left Kashmir because of the ultimatum given by them. And why I say this is because when we observe the 1990 it happened, we observed 30 years of this here in 2020 January, and many Kashmiri Pandits said that we were not violent. Not a single Kashmiri Pandit became violent. Great. When I shared that story with my American friends, they said, that's awesome, but you mean nobody fought back? Right? America is a culture of fight back, right? Everybody was talking about fight back, fight back, fight back, fight back. You mean to say nobody fought back? So let's for a moment assume that Kashmiri Pandits were totally outnumbered. But what about 80% people, Hindus in India? Nobody fought back? Which part of Sanatan Dharma and Sanatan practice? And I'm a Sanatani too. And I always look for answers within our own faith. And there are answers. But I want to hear from you. Does Sanatani principle make us weak? Are we too peace-loving? Are we too tolerant? At what point in time are we going to stand up and fight?
I would say, if I take a shot, I think there are two things about Sanatani. What we are today, which is we are too soft, we don't take an action, we don't defend ourselves, versus what we should be as per our text, our practices of the past, which is Lord Parshuram. Despite being a Brahmin, he took an axe and he took care of the issues that there were at that time. If people are if the people's dharma is to preach somebody, if people's dharma is to do business, if people's dharma is to defend Kshatriya, or people's dharma is to do labor, you have to give up your dharma. You can't get stuck to it. When it comes to defending, when your daughters are being raped, or possibility of being raped, there's possibility of you're getting killed, beaten up, your houses, your properties could be looted. You cannot be with your dharma. You cannot stick to it. You have to give up, stand the ground, and fight it. You have to stand the ground. We can't give up the ground. You have to fight it out. Give up your dharma.
No, you don't give up your dharma. Your dharma is then to fight.
I mean you're practicing whatever you're practicing. So if
Right.
you're a Brahmini, you're practicing
Right.
these forces and whatever. For a time being, when there is a need, you have to pick up weapons and fight
Yes,
it.
that's exactly the point. And when I read the text of Mahabharata, Gita,
Right.
the lessons from that, Sanjeev, I will seek your comment on that. One of the biggest lessons that I learned with my study of Ramcharitmanas, Ramayana, and Gita was that even Krishna, even Rama, had to take weapons to protect dharma. Why did we forget it? What happened to us?
Well, I think I'll have to dial back a few years.
Go ahead.
This has been our narratives, and have been systematically being deconstructed, basically, and a false narrative of being submissive, of being nonviolent, of being like, if somebody hits you on one cheek, give the other cheek bullshit. Excuse me if I can say that, but that has been fed to our people over the years. Okay. When I started to do this, to understand what happened to our people, because I look at all our gods, barring a couple, every single god that we have weapons in their hands. It's part of our dharma, basically. Our dharma never told us to be weak, to be submissive. In fact, quite the contrary. They said, you got to stand up for yourself. That's what's been taught even in the Gita. That's what Lord Krishna told Arjuna. I know you see, when Arjuna put down his bow and he said, how can I kill? I see my brothers, I see my grandfather, I see all my relatives. What Krishna tells him is basically, don't be so foolish, for they're already dead. You are just bare an instrument. You are carrying out my will. Do your dharma as a Kshatriya. Pick up that bow and fight. You are my tool. So basically, so what he's saying is they have done something, wrong. And you being quiet and you not taking the right measures to defend yourself, you will be in a bigger wrong. You have to follow your dharma. Your dharma is to, protect, basically.
Right.
Follow your karma. You see, going back to what is being going on is we have stepped back, even by the British. I mean, all our weapons were seized, going back to the Mughals. Our Indian family unit, I hardly know anybody that have weapons in their house anymore. If you go back a few centuries, everybody used to carry weapons. That was part of our culture, basically. Now you have been de-weaponized because the rulers that we had, it was not in their favor for the population to be armed, basically. So
that's a very interesting point, and that's what I was coming to, Chaitanyaji, with that thought process, is that how come we are not able to protect and defend ourselves? Apart from the fact that we are not perhaps been brainwashed into believing that submission, like Gandhiji said, if somebody, and Gandhi's statement was absolutely abhorrent for me.
It was.
He said that if Muslims come to kill you, offer yourself as as a sacrifice. Now, that is a brainwashing. I don't know why he did that. What was he trying to protect? But Chaitanyaji, what I wanted to hear from you is, we got de-weaponized, we got disarmed because the British and Mughals could not afford to see that millions of us would be armed. Then armed rebellion can become very dangerous for their rule. So they disarmed us. I'm saying now, what do we need to do to protect and defend Hindu lives? As if this is the only life that can be taken away. That's what is bothering me a lot on these matters, that apart from the ability to fight, do we have the instruments to fight with? Because I notice, I know for sure that many people have told me, my Muslim friends have told me, that we have instruments of war, weapons in our mosques. So whenever something happens, they're ready with the swords or whatever. My question is, where are Hindus with their weapons? We are de-weaponized, we have no weapons, and keeping arms is illegal. US is a country where you have Second Amendment that gives you right to own weapons to protect and defend your own property and assets, including from state tyranny.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? The tyranny of the state, that's the major plank to have the weapon. This is part of the Constitution. Why don't we have something like this? Or what is the rule about that? What is going on? What can we do about it? What is the message that we can convey? That if the police and paramilitary is not prepared and not in a position to defend an ordinary citizen, it's not like US has a 911 where you can call the police and somebody's there in 2 minutes time. You have assurance of a system. Does a system like this exist in India? I don't know. I'm asking you.
Great question, Dr. Jha. I want to pick up on Sanjeevji's point on the history a little bit. I think many of us follow Jaipur dialogues, and there's a wealth of information in those shows. And I learned recently the first law or rule to de-weaponize subjects was started way back by Akbar the Great as part of the 16 or 17 rules of Dimitude. I think that's back in the 14th or 15th century. I'm not sure on the dates, where it specifically said that the Dhimmi subjects cannot have weapons. After the revolt of the Indians under British, 1857 revolt, I believe 1859, don't quote me on the date, the British passed a law where they had this tag of loyal citizen who could carry weapons, loyal to the Queen, and the rest of the people could not have weapons. And then when we got our independence, I believe in 1959, the Indian Arms Act was passed. Progressive, but restrictive. And then progressively, those little rights have been stripped. And what remains is a stump of those rights, basically for sports-related use. And I would like to answer this from a perspective of law-abiding citizens, whoever they might be. I think all of us agree we are a plural society in India, and we will remain so, a plural society. And so when we look at safety, especially in this context, it is safety, let's look at it for the sake of discussion, as safety of all law-abiding, non-criminal people that live in India. Because I don't think any of us have quarreled with anybody who is not of the mind to attack or harm another person. I don't believe our dharma also is consistent with that. If somebody is causing you non-harm, I don't think there's anything in our psyche that desires to cause anybody else harm. Yeah. So to answer your question, what can law-abiding citizens do to ensure their safety within their home, right? So your home has to be your sanctuary, especially if you're a family and if you have women and children. No matter who you are, no matter where you have a right to protect your family. I was just doing some research before our conversation. In India, the current bar to get a weapon, you have to demonstrate threat to your life. Now that's a hard thing to do. It's a very hard thing to do. And so, and we also know we have one of the fewest ratio of police to society. And it's we have to also give the government, I mean, and it's as hard as that might be, and I kind of almost don't want to say this, but some amount of benefit of the doubt, because they have to work with the tools they have to manage this very large population. So I think the question for the citizens like us to ask of the government is, given your constraints, given your limitations, given, and let's assume every government, state, center, have the mindset to protect citizens for sake of discussion, theoretical discussion. How do you protect that family unit, whoever that family unit might be, within their home? So can we discuss some enlightened type of gun control measures or firearm control measures, wherein for the very limited purpose of defending the lives of your own immediate family within your home, and not for the purposes of anything else, but is that possible? Will our society accept it? Will the larger political setup accept it? I think these are questions that need to be, maybe it's time to start discussing.
That's a very valid point. Either you provide or you enable. If you are not able to increase the population of police personnel, increase more police stations, especially in violence-prone areas, or increase the ratio of police to population part of it. That's a very good point, and I would say, and if you're not able to do that, then have a justice system which dispenses justice faster than required. There has to be a deterrent. I'm a strong believer in deterrent. Either you discourage, prevent, or give me the liberty to protect myself. And that dialogue needs to happen. Because what is happening, and I'm coming to you, Raji, is that, what bothers me most, I'll tell you, and I will seek your opinion, all of you here. We are the most peace-loving belief system in the world. We are. I mean, I'm not even going to concede even an inch to anybody on this. We are in the 21st century. If you go back to as many years, centuries ago, I'm not concerned about that. We're living today. We are the most peace-loving people on the planet Earth. Look at us Indians. Like a senator once told me that we love you Indians as immigrants to this country. You are educated, you are professionals, you work hard, you are in the highest median income, you contribute to the society, you have family values, you take care of your children, you are least problem from a law and order perspective, apart from the occasional white-collar crimes, and you ask for nothing. So you are the perfect group of people that we want here. We are that kind of a people. But when I see in the media, we are constantly under attack for everything that we are not. How do we change that narrative from a Sanatan practice? Because that's what I do with most of my American friends. And they tell us me only one thing. Why the hell don't you tell us about it? We don't talk. We don't preach. We don't need to proselytize. But we don't convert anybody to our faith. But at least we have to talk about ourselves. Otherwise, why would anybody know? So as a Sanatani, and I'm holding you on that, please don't misunderstand me. I'm saying that we are all Sanatanis here. I'm saying that as a Sanatan, as an institution, what we NRIs must do to carry the message forward in a country like this, which has so much similarity and so much to gain from us. Your thought.
Can I pick up on the subject of ratio of police to the number of people?
You can definitely pick up, but keep it short and let's get to this part of things. Sure, thank you.
There is a solution that some of us are working on that, which is a community police. Community police we can implement in a society, in a small community. You can have your own police with a police look-alike dress, and with a permission from authority, you can keep the security for your community. So that's the concept I wanted to bring it to you.
Basically, what you are saying is a gated security concept.
No,
I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure whether I would want the policemen to have the same community policing people to wear the same uniform as the regular police.
I mean,
yeah.
if you go here, like in a county fair, you will see the police by the people who do the fair, right?
Yeah.
That's the kind of police I'm talking about.
Correct. I mean, there
it's
has
happening
to
in
be
India
a
too.
social awakening on that front, that
Yes.
people create their own mechanism for protecting and defending themselves, because not everybody can do it. So
we need government authority to allow that.
Well, let's start. And I'm a believer in one thing, like, let's start. Let a community, just as you have a gated community in America, they have a security thing on the gate, right?
Yes.
They don't have the gun, they don't have the license, but they have the ability to call 911.
Right.
Exactly. Right? They have I know if you are in a gated community, there is somebody at the gate protecting the gate.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say. So we have to create a self-governing mechanism for that.
Right.
That I am not police, but if somebody comes to attack, I'm willing to fight.
Right.
Let's come back to the Sanatan part.
Right. And they will call to police also, real police, to get the support. Yeah.
So Sanatan part, what do we need to do? By the way, I must tell you this, because Hindus are under attack in the United States as well. There is a very concerted attack directed towards Modi and attacking us. That if you are, I was horrified that one of my friends, she told me recently that her daughter was asked this question by her friend, how can you support Modi? Who was she? She was a Muslim girl. And she asked, how can you support Modi? He has killed so many people. The narrative is different. What are we? What we Sanatani must do to protect and defend ourselves here? Let's talk about this.
I think if I may go.
Yeah, let him first.
Oh, okay.
Then
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to say, what do we lack currently, right? So what do we lack? We don't have any documentaries about us that we produce for the rest of the world. We don't write books, right? We don't write good books. We don't write good articles. We don't write blogs. We don't tell the world the peaceful nature that we have. We don't talk about it. So subsequently, the biased media, the leftist media, they pick up on the angle they want to pick. And that's what they're teaching the Muslim girl. How can you support Modi? So there's a whole range of communication thing, the media, the book, the documentaries. We need to go out and document them. We need to produce movies about this.
True.
If we do that, then there could be a change that we could see, because we are not telling people, right? If we don't tell, then how would people know? How would the world know?
Exactly.
They would not know.
Exactly. So, it is time for us to arise, as I borrow from Swami Vivekananda's teaching. Arise, awaken, arise and assert. And I add my fourth A to that is act. Because we are the people with all the knowledge and wisdom in our texts and history, we forget the basic essence of acting. Yes, Sanjeevji, go ahead.
Just to add to what Chaitanya and Raji were saying earlier, I know we are focused on weapons, but I believe the key to this is not the weapons. The key is our mind. Our mind has been enslaved by generations of being ruled. The first thing we got to do is break that mind away. Our people, I don't believe, they're even capable of holding a weapon, because if you give somebody a gun or an axe or whatever, he will not know what to do. He'll throw it down and he'll run away, because that's the easier way. So our fight or flight mechanism has completely been distorted. So we no longer believe in the fight part of that mechanism. For us, the flight is much more easier and convenient. So that needs to be changed. For that to change, I think we'll have to start at a very young age. Teach our children to stand up for what they believe in, and let them not be ashamed or shy to hold a weapon. Let them get used to holding a lathi. Let them get used to holding something. It should be part of our educational curriculum, basically. Like in Switzerland, all kids are taught to bear arms and to maintain arms, and I'm not saying you have to have a gun. I mean, a weapon can even be a self-defense weapon can also be a lathi, like RSS used to do in the past. I don't know why we have gotten away from that thing, and as a Sanatani, the concept, I think, everything starts at home. As individual parents, we have to raise our children, A, with the awareness of what's happening around us. B, we have to raise them to be proud of who they are by letting them know their past, their lineage, their history, where they come from. That itself has been tampered with. I can go back to my school text. I remember more of studying about Mughal era than the Vijayanagar Empire. I'm from Karnataka. I had like 2 paragraphs on Vijayanagar Empire, and I had this chapters and chapters on Mughal. So which narrative do you think I'm going to be more focused on? That I have been ruled by so many years. So that needs to be changed. So it all starts in the mind, and everything else flows from there, basically.
That's so well said. Thank you. Now, Chaitanyaji, there is a tough question coming your way and a thought process. You are a young man. I think in my lifetime, not much is going to change. Your lifetime, you have to change. You have to prevent things from going back to worse. My request to you is, where do we go from here? What do you feel that must happen? And Sanjeev ji talked about the much needed change at the mental level. The whole thing begins from narrative. It whole begins the storytelling. How many of us even knew that the first 5 education ministers in India were all Muslims?
Isn't that
How
crazy?
many of us knew about that?
Yeah.
None. Very few.
Mhm.
Or didn't notice. Or we just thought, oh, they will be great and honest. But they changed the narrative.
Mhm.
Going forward, I noticed one thing. I tell you why I preface that with one thing. I see a lot of restlessness in Hindus right now about Modi, saying that he's not doing anything. We did a 7-year assessment of his rule, and it came out that he has done a whole lot of things.
Mhm.
Whole lot of things. People are still unhappy. And I said that Modi's biggest contribution to Hindus is that he's opened up their tongue-tied mouth and lips are no longer sealed. Because we are the people who maintained the silence and tolerated the 60 years or 65 years of Congress rule where they disrupted the Hindu life.
Mhm.
Or the Sanatan. They demeaned everything that was there. I feel it because I've seen it.
Yeah.
I don't need to be lectured. I don't need to be brainwashed to be saying this because I have seen it. You are a young man. Where do you see the path going forward? Where do you see the visualization? Since you believe in simulations and focus and all that, where do you see the simulations going through? Where does it take you? What's your message to the youngsters like you?
So that's a great point, Dr. Jha. And I was talking last year when the CAA came about. I reached out to some Bengali friends who were vehemently opposed to the CAA, and I was very surprised. And these were Sanatanis or Hindu by name, right? And so I asked them, don't you see this as a continuation of the Nehru Liaquat Ali Pact, wherein we are a natural safe space for the. And what surprised me was our civilizational memory is very short. And the younger generation does not contextualize the present in the context of the past. So let's look at it from a different perspective. We are a pluralistic society. We will, in the foreseeable future, we will remain a pluralistic society. But how do we continue to stay on the path of progress, on the path of a law-abiding, lawful society, where everybody can contribute to nation building? So as a younger person, I would look at what systemic changes can we make so security is a right for for everybody who lives in that space, whoever, whatever they may follow. And I think that's something Modi has been very, very wise to. And if you've noticed, he's always towed that line of carrying everybody along, which I think is um, a very enlightened way of looking at our society. If you can bring prosperity, if you can bring security, and I think that's where we're missing a little bit. I do think there is palpable, especially after Bengal, with all of the glare of media, when you saw this happen, I think younger people are starting to question for the first time very seriously. And I'm not talking about Modi or Mamta, the state's ability to ensure security. By the Indian state, that includes the center, that includes the state government, that includes the police machinery, the administration. And foundational to any progress is security. So I think if that can be established for all people, then you can build on top of that layers of progress, and hopefully togetherness and other good things can come about. If that foundational layer of security at home is absent, then, from a simulation perspective, the arc veers off very quickly. And I don't think we want to go that direction.
We don't want to. We don't want that to happen. We don't want India. Now, time is coming to an end, as the saying goes, that every good conversation must come to an end. We are time bound, but I would like all of you to comment on this particular aspect. And this is what majority of us get attacked. And this is happening in societies. And this is happening to all parents. And I'm having serious conversations with many parents. So I would seek your opinion on this matter. Majority of first generation Indians who came here, they came to make a good living. And nothing wrong in it. That's how we migrated here, to make a decent life, to live the American dream. An American dream is not about owning a Maserati or Ferrari and a Hampton beachfront house. It is about living with dignity and respect. So in this country, which I admire a lot, is that dignity of labor is remarkable. So I was stunned to see, contrary to our country, where we call a driver as if he doesn't have a name, and we look down upon jobs. Consequently, we were India-born confused desis. We were never taught about our own texts and our own literature. And we got so busy with our own life, earning, working hard, and making ourselves prosperous, that we produced American-born confused desis, who are now, in the next generation, are Hindus in name only. We have all been parents. What do the current generation of parents must do to make sure that our children are not lost? And I'm saying this with a deep concern, because today I was having a conversation with a university professor who said there are many Indian parents who are multimillionaires and who are deeply concerned about the fact that their children will be lost to Hinduism. They will be lost because they do not give a damn about being a Hindu and our multiple gods. They have been brainwashed. How did you deal with this situation? Or how will you deal with this situation within your own family? Because Sanatan practice is beautiful. And I know it. I don't need to be taught. I've dealt with that with my children. And I dealt with them. I'm very proud to share that I'm successful doing that. And I'm willing to share with others what I did. Well, how are you dealing with that challenge? Do you have that challenge? Each one of you, a minute each.
But I'll go first. I don't have that challenge. I only have a dog, so I'm good.
Hey, you're a wonderful guy. I believe that everybody who has a dog is a better human being. So I have a dog too. Okay, so at least we do Nishkam Seva for a dog, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, I went through the challenge basically. And my son is, as you can imagine, the only son, only child, has been more secular in nature. And talking anything about Hindu God or any religion Hindu religion specifically, or Sanatana Dharma has been difficult to talk about. So what I have been doing is focusing on just pure spiritual aspect of it.
Mhm.
Never talking about God with him. I don't bring the word God when I talk to him.
Thank
But
you.
I do bring the word spirituality, consciousness, and how do you learn things and talk about all those things, witnessing aspect of consciousness and so forth. So some of those things he likes it. Yoga, I talked about it. The meditation, I talk about it, which doesn't have anything to do with God or anything.
Okay.
Some of this kind of concept goes well with him. So
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah.
Sanjeevji, you.
Well, I have a 12-year-old son, so I'm about to enter that phase where he's
He's
been
not
to
12
ask.
years old, he's 12 years
Yes,
young.
he's 12 years young. So what my experience and the way I learned about Hinduism was through my mother. I mean, she introduced me to Hinduism through stories, and I found that to be a very effective tool of communication. And I've adopted the same tool with my son. And I started this a couple of years ago. I told him the story of Mahabharata, then Ramayana, and then he wanted to see it in visual format. So I dug out some YouTube videos and I introduced him to that. So he's a part of watching a movie and listening to the stories. So I've slowly introduced him to Sanatana, what we are as people. I mean, he had his friends. I took out this Lord Ganesha statue and I put it outside where it's visible for everybody to see. And then when Neil's friends came over, they would ask him, "What is this thing?" And I told him the story of Ganesha, why he has an elephant head, and he would tell his friends, and of course they're gonna say, "Oh, that's weird," And then I've already told my son how to deal with that stuff. So I've tried to train.
We are out of time here now, so
Okay.
I will have to shut down.
Okay.
But I'm very grateful for each one of your personal stories. And this is remarkable. I would love to, if you are ready, to continue this dialogue for the purposes of educating and dealing with our children in this part of the world. Because we don't want to lose our children to beliefs which are not ours,
Mhm.
or get driven by ideas which are not ours. And I have done this, so I can share my personal experience on this matter. And I would love you, all of you, to address the question of gods or multiple gods. I have answered this question to many Americans, and they see reason in it. So I have the liberty, being the host, I have a 30-second liberty. I'll tell you what I said about multiple gods. I was asked this question by a CEO of a company. Why do you have so many gods? I said, no, we have no gods. We have one, just as you have. But just as you have not seen God, I haven't seen God either. But then but you Christians have a very beautiful way to describe things that be grateful. So we express our great gratitude to God for giving us Son with a form whose energy sustains us. Without sun, we would be in ice age, dead, frozen, or whatever. So if I say, thank you, God, for giving us sun, whose shape I worship and pray for keeping me alive. It's a life-sustaining force. So does God manifest himself in life? He said, that makes sense. I said, great. I said, here is water. 70% of our body is water, isn't it? Water sustains us, and it has an amazing capacity to assume the shape and size of whatever it goes into. Tumbler, glass, or whatever. It goes flat, it goes tall, it goes whatever. So can I say that I'm grateful to God for giving us H2O that sustains our body? Otherwise we'll go dehydrated and whatever else happens with that. So if I can pray to God and thank him for giving us water, and I'm inspired by water. Give the thirsty man a glass of water and nothing else tastes better. Then I said, here is air. I just use these three examples. Air, invisible. but omnipresent, omniscient, every time, everywhere. Nobody, no life can sustain without air. No Muhammad, no Akbar, no Jesus, no Ram could live even for a nanosecond without air. And it has no shape or size. It's a non-form. So that's what Hinduism is all about. We don't worship God, we worship manifestation of God for expressing our gratitude to a form called sun, to a liquid form, or a known form. Whatever inspires you. That's who we are. That's the time when he said, why the hell don't you tell us about this? We don't know about this. We didn't know. And I assure you, you guys never thought about it either, perhaps. But if you did, very grateful. But that's how we have to create the narrative. That's how we have to create the story to our children, that Ganesh is in that form because something like that can happen to anyone, right? No animal life is wasted because every animal serves a purpose in the eco balance. The snake, the rodent, the rat, everything serves a purpose in nature and life. Thank you, gentlemen. Viewers, thank you very much for this engrossing conversation about us, Hindus, Sanatanis, India. But protect and defend has to become our mool mantra. And our activities have to surround behind the thought process of protect and defend our honor, our prestige, our life. With these thoughts, wish you a great week ahead. See you next week again. Thank you.